Come. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Draft Up Podcast live on Blue Chip Scouting's YouTube channel and Twitter account. It's Jared Feinberg, Devin Jackson, and Dante Colonelli, director of our scouting department. Boys, how's it going this evening?
I let the Gus go first. Go ahead, Dante.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna. It's your podcast. I didn't want to infringe. No, I'm doing good, man. I'm excited to be here, talk to you guys. We're just gonna apparently just talk some summer scouting, man. I'm always down to talk about prospects, especially this is a good class, so I'm excited. Yeah. Should be a good time.
Dante and I, or not Dante and I, Devin and I last night after the podcast, we were just talking, and so it's going to be a free for all. This evening, we're going to just talk about whatever's on our mind. And I'm getting notifications on my phone that the Lakers have officially traded for Russell Westbrook. So that is lovely news. And, of course, the NBA draft is going on at the same time as well. So we got a lot going on at this very moment in time in the sports world. There weren't a lot of interesting things in the sports world, really, except, Randall Cobb getting traded late last night. And I can't really think of anything that really happened today. Was there really anything that was like, oh, wow, this big thing happened today and all that?
Well, Texas and Oklahoma officially going to join the SEC. So that, the as we expected, the boards of the SEC teams have agreed to bring them in. I think they're supposed to have a formal meeting tomorrow to figure out, the details of that. But they're expected to come in by 2025, which RIP to Ben Glassmeyer, who has the Big 12 area scouting. And it's very sad for him. They lose two teams that have probably the most prospects almost every year.
I'm really looking to see where Oklahoma and Texas are placed, which division they're going to be placed in the SEC. If Oklahoma and Alabama are in the same division, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Maybe even starting next year, or we'll have to wait until 2025. I would think that the SEC is going to just send all their lawyers in and just be like, we want Oklahoma and Texas now. We want them in the not the Big Ten, the SEC now. So I'm very interested to see how everything plays out. This is definitely going to be an interesting aspect for the new 12-team college football playoff, which will start after, I think, the 2022 or 2023 season. So that will be very interesting to see. What are the biggest, Dante, for college football in general? What type of ramifications does this move by Oklahoma and Texas bring to the entire landscape, going from the Big 12 to arguably and most definitely the best conference in college football?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ramifications. We'll have to see how many other teams bail from the Big 12. I mean, it just might not be a conference by 2025. There's the reports that the American is trying to snipe some of the teams out of there. We've heard talk about them merging with the Pac-12. So, I mean, we honestly might just be looking at a completely new college football conference landscape, which is incredibly interesting. Obviously, it'll be a huge, huge shakeup. And I think that's a ton of fun. The only problem that I have with it is Texas, man. We did this on Inside the War Room on Sports Illustrated last night. So I'll see if you guys can guess it. How many 10-win seasons has Texas had since 2009?
One, maybe two. One. Yeah.
2018 when they won the Sugar Bowl, Georgia. Sam Ehlinger did his whole "we're back" spiel. That's how many 10-win seasons they have in the Big 12, man. They're going to the SEC, and they're bringing Oklahoma with them. I don't know. That's bold. We'll see how it goes.
I think this actually could benefit Texas, though, because you'll be getting the SEC recruits from that you wouldn't be able to get while you're in the Big 12. Going from Big 12 to the SEC, that's kind of big, but also it could probably help them down the road. When Texas A&M was in the Big 12, like quite a few years ago, and then they moved to the SEC, they have gotten a lot better since joining the SEC from the Big 12. They weren't really that great of a team joining the SEC, and now that they've been in the SEC for this long, they've been a very consistent team overall. Not like they're winning like 12 games a year. They've been a consistent football team that has really challenged some of the bigger teams in college football and really made some great games over the last few years, especially the 7 overtime game against LSU a couple years ago. Joe Burrow's first year at LSU. And at that time, we had no idea we'd be expecting Joe Burrow to go crazy. But anyways, I think this will benefit Texas. Now for Oklahoma, I think this will – you're shaking your head, Devin.
I disagree. I don't think – you see, I think it's going to benefit more Oklahoma than Texas because Texas has been – they don't have a problem with recruiting.
Yeah,
they don't have
Devin.
a problem. They don't have a problem with recruiting. It's about the results on the field. So I think they've made their path to – because – look, they're like they're supposedly a blue blood program. Like recruiting has never been the problem. They get 5 stars, they get 4 stars. They have the highest recruits in the conference almost all the time. They're always in top 10, 15 draft. I mean, not draft classes, but recruiting classes.
Yeah.
But for Oklahoma, I think this benefits them more in overall because now they're going to get athletes all over the field now. It's not just the quarterback position that they're going to be stacked at or receiver or offensive tackle. Now their defense can actually catch up to what their offense has been doing. So I would expect Oklahoma to win a division much more sooner than Texas, only because Texas, they can't figure it out, So that was only my thing is that I get that they're going to get some of those recruits back from Texas A&M possibly, but Texas A&M right now is in a position in the program right now than Texas. I mean, they have the coach set in stone pretty much for right now. They have the resources. They have a track record of being competitive in the SEC West. I mean, Texas is barely competitive every year in the Big 12, and it's just Oklahoma, Iowa State every other year, Baylor every other year. So it's like, I get both sides of that. I get that Texas may get a little bit more recruiting help, but I think recruiting has never been their issue. It's just about putting results on the field, and they just haven't done it.
Hopefully Steve Sarkisian can start bringing that consistency to Texas that they've been missing for the last, 10 years, 10 plus years at least.
I think the thing with Texas is that people just need to accept that this is not a powerhouse program. And they haven't been good for a long time, man.
Oh, okay.
Like, this is not like, Texas has been bad for a couple years. They're on a schneid. They lost the BCS National Championship game in 2009, and they have won 10-win seasons since then. Like, I just think we need to come to the realization that, there's a tier of teams, there's another tier of teams, and then there's Texas, and they're like a tier 3 team. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're still good. They're competitive. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're not Ohio State. They're not Alabama. They're not Clemson. And they're frankly not Oklahoma either. So, that's just kind of where they're at. It's going to be fun, though. I think that's the main takeaway for me is that the new SEC is going to be a ton of fun. I'm very excited about it.
You're not saying that Texas isn't a blue blood anymore, right? They're still blue blood in college.
I mean, what's your definition of blue blood? If your definition of blue blood is a team that competes for a national championship, brother, that ain't Texas. They're not even competing for a Big 12 championship, my dude. Matt Campbell's running circles around him in Iowa State.
I'm talking more about past history blue blood.
I mean, if you want to say historically speaking, sure. But they've been underperforming for a long time now.
I can get with you on that. Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC would cause other teams and other conferences to go, maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea to join the SEC after all. Imagine if Clemson joined the SEC. I would not be a happy camper. They would never
gonna happen.
We're seeing the ACC and just they want to dominate every year in the ACC. They'd be like, nah, we're fine.
I don't see it. I don't see it happening. Mainly because Clemson has built their program where they don't need to be an SEC to get on top of college football. Basically put. I mean, part of the reason that Texas is joining because they want to be back and talked about relevantly more often. Because they're not winning their conference and they haven't won their conference in quite some time. So now it's like you think of the long-term aspects. Texas was on a program on the decline as opposed to like that they had between everybody else in the Big 12. Like on a good year, maybe one or two of those teams will beat prime Texas back in the 2000s. Like Texas just ran the Big 12, basically. There's them or Oklahoma. But now Iowa State has become a legit program. Hitler has had his up and down years, but now under Dave Aranda, they look better. So for Texas, it's like getting a place where they know when they're going to get a lot of money. They already had their network. Now they're going to be an SEC, the large earning conference in college football and probably in college sports in general. And then, you bring in Oklahoma as well. Oklahoma is just going to continue to strengthen their brand. It didn't matter if they're going to be the ACC, the Pac-12. They could be anywhere. They're still going to be, a competitive team no matter what. But Clemson, they're at the tier 1 level. Alabama and Clemson. That's really the two tier 1 right now. And no one's really touching those programs right now. So why would you go to a conference where you're playing the team that you expect to play in the national championship every year? So it'll be kind of a counterproductive move to make for me. So I don't think the SEC will expand anymore. I think right now, they got 16 teams now. I think it's fine where it's at. I think you're going to see maybe a couple of the Big 12 teams join the Big 10. Maybe Iowa State decides to jump to the Big 10 and play their rival Iowa every year. And two, be in a conference that's not too far behind the SEC. It's SEC, Big 10, ACC, and then it's a big drop off after those conferences, pretty much. So, no disrespect to the Pac-12, but they're not marketing their teams correctly either. So, I expect the Big 10 to be the next conference we talk about the ads teams.
Dante was laughing there, and I was like, poor Pac-12, man. Gotta feel bad for him.
I love the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is incredibly fun. It is filled with a bunch of teams that are just straight memes, and I love it. I'm like literally a closet Oregon State fan at this point. But yeah, I agree with Devin. I think that the SEC is easily the best conference. They have enough players. They have enough teams. They don't need to add anymore. I think they're Gucci.
Yeah. I can't wait for third of or probably 3/4 of the new 12-team college football playoff to be all SEC teams. Yay.
It's going to be insane. It's going to be insane because
it's going to be absolutely insane, but it's going to be incredible chaos.
I think I'm more interested to see how they divide up the teams because I don't think they're going to have the traditional SEC West and East teams. And that's just a gut feeling from me because there are so many money-making opportunities for them right now. If they decide to throw it into 4 different divisions within the SEC, then you can keep Texas and Oklahoma. You can theoretically put all the old Big 12 teams in the same conference. So Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas A&M. Then you got LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and some other. SEC Network put a great proposal last week when all these discussions were going on. So I expect them to do away with it because you cannot have Oklahoma, LSU, Alabama, Texas A&M, Auburn all in the same division because then it's like, how are you going to? Well, I mean, you could. Theoretically, you could, because then you can get 2-3 teams in for an SEC just from them playing each other and knocking each other off. But then the SEC East is really exposed. I mean, outside of Georgia and Florida, I mean, no one else is really consistently putting up a fight, winning the SEC East, so it's going to be tricky because right now, the way they have it set up, I mean, how is Missouri in the SEC East? They're like on a map. They're all like all these teams are on the west part of the SEC, but they're in the East. So they're going to have to figure out some sort of way where they can make travel a little bit easier, one, and then two, make sense where there's a competitive balance between the two divisions.
I just want chaos. Okay. I want to see all of the SEC and the college football playoff come 2023 or whenever it comes out. It's going to be crazy just to see like how they're going to realign the conference, how they're going to divide everyone up, how this will look from a college football playoff perspective over these next couple years with the 14 playoff kind of just going away now with the expansion to 12 teams. It's going to be very interesting to see how everything goes down. Trying to think of some other stuff to talk about. I think we need to talk more about the Aaron Rodgers stuff from this entire summer throughout the entire offseason and as well as like over the last couple of days, because Devin and I talked about it on the podcast today or last night. You guys can find it. You guys can find the podcast on iTunes and Spotify, the Draft Nut podcast. Our recent episode is up on iTunes and Spotify right now, so make sure you check it out. But I want to talk more about that situation because I think it's really shown me that I think more star players on the team, the guys that really have a big say from not only a team perspective, but from a community, marketing, and overall general public view. Like they want to have more input as to what the front office is going to do personnel-wise. They want to make sure their team is in the best position it is to be successful in the NFL. So what could some of the ramifications from Rodgers' little whole saga with Green Bay from this past summer, how does this change the view of other quarterbacks in the league that are like, say, Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Josh Allen? Like, those guys are starting to become stars on their team and very well known in the NFL, where they can be like, hey, I need tell the front office, hey, if we could, I'd like this and this and this to happen, so then we can be more successful in the NFL. I just want to know some of your guys' opinions on this whole thing.
I think that, the NFL seems to be going in the direction of the NBA, where players are just, they're getting more power. They're going to have more say. It's definitely, slowly but surely developing into a player's first league. And guys like Rodgers are going to lead the charge on that. And I think it even goes beyond the quarterback position. I mean, you can go and look at Miami, and you can look at what Xavier Howard's trying to do there and push his way out. And, he came out on Twitter or Instagram the other day and was like, I signed a contract that I didn't understand, and I want more money anyway, and I'm pushing my way out. So, I think players are just, they're going to take more of a grasp on their futures, on their contracts, and they're going to push for as much money as they can possibly get. And, the more that these guys succeed, the more power other players, or feel like they're going to have or should have. And that's just the way it's going to be. And I think, fans are going to have to learn to develop with that, because the NFL, and especially a lot of fans, and I saw this on Dolphins Twitter the other night with Howard, is like, everybody's just, absolutely upset. They think he's being greedy, or they think he's being soft, or whatever it is. And it's like, dude's just trying to make his money when he can. He's a 28-year-old corner, and he's coming off a huge year. So guys are going to take hold of their power, and I think Rodgers is just a good example because he's in one or two, three best quarterbacks in the NFL. So guys are going to continue to do that, and when people have success, more guys are going to keep doing it, and eventually it's going to get to the point where I think we'll see a lot of things like we see in the NBA, where players just have the power to get traded, all the time, and they have the power to kind of dictate who they're playing with. Obviously, quarterbacks will always have more of a say, and you have to be at least somewhat of a good player, but this isn't going away anytime soon, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree and kind of build off of that. I think when you look at, even past Aaron Rodgers, I mean, Deshaun Watson, came out and publicly said he wants to be traded, and these players want to win. It's not only about just getting the money you deserve, but you also want to be in a winning situation as well. And I think, like you said, it's moving towards more of an NBA type model, and having its biggest stars like Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Xavier Howard is a rising star as well. You have some of those guys making these moves and publicly saying they want to be traded or they want things to happen. As an organization, it puts pressure on you to make things happen because you don't want to have that unhappy player, remain in the locker room. You also don't want to keep a player that doesn't want to be there and then kind of mess up with your own team's chemistry. So it's a lot of things to go into that. And I think, Aaron Rodgers putting, it known yesterday, and like I said on the podcast last night, that, he wants to win. One, and two, he wants to have a say in the decisions that the organization makes because ultimately he's the one out there, having to throw to these receivers. And he's been throwing to Devontae Adams and a bunch of random players, basically. I mean, you can name all the different receivers you have over the last couple of years. I mean, it just hasn't been at the level that some of these Super Bowl teams, that went on to win the Super Bowl, it's just not the same caliber. So, it's getting more of a player-driven league, thankfully. For the longest time, NFL teams would cut players and pretty much just leave them out to dry, and there's nothing you can do about it. But the NFLPA has done a better job, representing their players and giving them chances to earn their contracts and get more money in general. And plus, with the NFL cap going up, expected to go up next year as well. It's going to continue to happen. So I think it's definitely a trend that's going to continue over the next couple of years and eventually get to a point where the stars are driving the league. So, it's definitely exciting to see at the very least. And you don't have GMs or, kind of decision makers dictating whether or not they're going to pay a player because they're just going to either hold out or they're going to request a trade.
So the thing with me is that the last thing I think any general manager or any front office, any head coach or any coaching staff will want to do is mess up team chemistry, especially with your star players, because they're going to have more say now. We're at the point where, if a player wants something, especially a star player, they will probably end up getting it. And Rodgers he's sort of getting that, where he is, he still wants to play with the team, but he knows that his time in Green Bay is about to come to an end, either next year or next offseason or in 2023. We just don't know. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. If I were the GM, I would make sure that my star player is notified, and I ask them, hey, what are some suggestions you want to give us in order to help our team be more successful this upcoming season? And I'd let him have some pretty big say in the decision making that my team would be doing. I think that's very important. I think I'm going to say the Panthers, for example. You have a star player, Christian McCaffrey, and you're going to have a rising star player like Brian Burns, who is expected to have a much bigger role this year as a leader and will probably be one of the better pass rushers in the league, I would assume, by the end of the year. You're going to have two players on both sides of the ball that are going to be like, okay, we want to be more successful down the road. So, sorry, that was my mom. So, okay, I just lost my entire train of thought thanks to my mother. So, you guys can thank her.
That's all. That's all good. You know, we can.
I think we're going. Anything can happen. You know.
That's true. That's true. But I was thinking we can go ahead and get into some prospects since we have our director of scouting in the building. And God knows how many reports he's put away now.
He was telling me, I don't know if I can actually say it because
we can say it. We're up to 254 reports on the blue chip scouting department. So if you want to hop on over there, if you're watching and click around on some of the reports, Devin and I are on there quite a bit. So we're really killing summer scouting, man. And I read all the reports. Got to go through and spell check and grammar check everyone and type up their grades and stuff. So, but it's been great, man. It's really been good. We've been kicking a lot of butt.
I'm since I joined Blue Chip Scouting a couple years ago, you and I were like some of the first writers of Blue Chip Scouting, and just how much it has grown since then is absolutely phenomenal. Shout out to Dalton Miller for creating this awesome website, for being the founding member of this website. He is doing great things over at Pro Football Network. An incredible guy, awesome Cowboys fan, very pessimistic Cowboys fan. And he's also a rising streamer, I would say. In my opinion, he's an awesome streamer in my eyes. So just how much this website has grown, it has been incredible. We're continuing to do great things. The scouting department is a step in that direction of we want to provide fans with analysis from our very own, from different eyes and different minds, just from our lenses, especially my lens, from Devin's, from Dante's, from Ben's, Tyler's, everyone at Blue Chip Scouting. We're trying to give a different lens of how we see prospects. We see prospects sometimes the same. We see them differently. Sometimes we even see them completely different. We're going to see a prospect differently one way or another. So I'm very impressed with how much the site has grown and what we have going with the scouting department. And let's get into some prospects. Devin, I know you've been watching a certain Western Michigan quarterback over the last few hours or so. I know you've been watching that quarterback. Tell us about him. I think this would be a nice little introduction for Dante, as he'll be reading this scouting report probably tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah. But so Caleb Ellaby. First thing that kind of sticks out in my mind is Western Michigan's offense. They run a lot of RPO based plays. You see pretty much Ellaby pretty much on a third of every play, reading, kind of the front side backer, seeing if he commits or not. And if he does, just slinging out there to Dwayne Eskridge on slants. So that's the first thing you see. You see he's able to deliver the ball with multiple arm angles. That's the first thing you notice. He had an incredible throw rolling to the right sideline against Central Michigan, where he just kind of flicks the ball and it goes like 40, 50 yards downfield. So the arm talent it's undeniable. He has some good arm talent for sure. The thing is going to be difficult with evaluating him is that their offense is not complex at all. It's pretty much, you read RPO based, like I said before, kind of similar. It's a more souped down version to what North Carolina runs. There's some concepts that North Carolina runs that will translate, but Western Michigan not so much. So it's going to be interesting to see, because he's not going to be a quarterback that comes in and starts right away. He's definitely a developmental type of quarterback, but the arm talent is something you can work with. Like I say, he can deliver the ball from multiple platforms and arm angles. Has a really pretty deep ball. He throws like a moonshot type of deep ball, not one that's like a zip like Malik Willis. It's not like Sam Howell that his isn't quite the moon ball, but it can get up there. But when, like I said, moon ball, I mean, he can throw it far and high. And it lands every time it lands into like his receiver's arms, and he always hits them in stride. What he needs to improve on, some mechanics wise, he throws the ball very low. It releases from a very low arm angle, so it leads to a lot of tip passes at the line of scrimmage. And he's not very creative outside the pocket. He can throw on the run. He can make throws on the run, but he's not going to be a Malik Willis type where he escapes pressure. He's not really too much of a running quarterback in general. He has some mobility, but it's not going to be anything over athletic or anything like that. So I haven't done a grade on him just yet, but I'm thinking he's going to hover around that third, fourth round range, because his raw ability as a passer is very intriguing. But in terms of, timing and whatnot, he can make all the throws on the field. But there's some accuracy issues he has, throwing kind of outside the numbers. There's some accuracy issues in general, just with how low his delivery is. And sometimes his feet don't get all the way set, or he's not facing the target when he's throwing at them. So Ellaby is a very intriguing watch. I think he's definitely worth the watch in this quarterback class. I don't think I would have him in the top 5, maybe in the latter half of the top 10, only because I don't know how well his system, the system that Western Michigan runs, is going to translate to the NFL. So I do worry about that and kind of how translatable it is, but the traits he has are definitely translatable.
The third, fourth round grade is interesting. I'm very excited to read this report. There's been some hype about Ellaby. Our quarterback rankings on the BCS scouting department are something. I refuse to release them publicly because I refuse to take responsibility for some of the grades that our scouts have handed out. So, but it'll be curious to see where Ellaby ranks. I think that'll be a good one, because we have. Oh man, our top 5 is a disaster. So we'll see if he cracks it or not. But that's going to be a good one. I'm excited, man. There's a lot of hype around him, and he popped a little bit with Eskridge. So that's going to be a good report.
Dante, so you've been able to really not just evaluate exclusively the Big Ten, but you've been able to really just branch off to different conferences. When you told us when it came to scouting prospects, especially the guys that signed with conferences, you were basically like, you can still go out and evaluate the players you want to evaluate, like from anywhere across the country, but you are responsible for your assigned conference. So from not only just the Big Ten, but from anywhere across the country that you've been able to evaluate so far this summer, who is your current draft crush coming into the 2021 season?
Oh, just one, huh? Man, you're really pinning me down. Wow. I'll stick in the Big Ten because I don't want to infringe on other scouts' turfs. I feel like that's rude. They spend so much time on that. I'm just like claiming players from their conferences. I think, I talked about Tyler Linderbaum on Inside the War Room. So I'll pivot to Maryland wide receiver Dante Demus Jr., who I think is someone that I very, very much like. Height, weight, speed guy, good size, very, very quick, smooth transitional breaks. And, he can beat guys on vertical routes. He's a good horizontal route runner. Very, very impressive movement skills for a guy. I think Maryland lists him at like 6'2", I want to say. Off the top of my head, I'll double check that real quick. But he is big, he's fast, he's smooth. There is a tiny issue with his film. He cannot catch the football, which is certainly unfortunate because he plays wide receiver. But if he can clean up the drops, man, I really think he can be like a top 50 wide receiver. He's got the skills for it. Yeah, Maryland lists him at 6'3", 213. I think he probably runs, I don't know, I want to say like 4.4 something. I think he's really fast. So we'll see. I think that he's really going to be a burner at his size. Again, can he catch the football? Not sure. He's got a lot of drops on film, but he's definitely a guy. I got a bunch from the Big Ten. I wasn't, the Big Ten's actually a really good conference for prospects this year. So I got a bunch of draft crushes in that conference. But Dante Demus Jr. is like, he's also my namesake. So I feel like I have to give him a shout out.
For sure. Well, it's funny you said that because that's exactly a scouting report I actually wrote about Mountain West receiver, Romeo Dubs. Same type of player. Can stretch the field vertically, but the catching issues, man. He has at least 2 drops a game, like at least 2. And Carson Strong was throwing dimes out there, and he's just dropping the ball. I mean, it's ridiculous. But it's definitely a player. It's a player that I heard mentioned as well. I know that some of the guys at TDN like Dante Demus Jr. as well. So that is definitely someone that's on the radar and should be. I mean, Maryland has been a dumpster fire for a couple of years now, but they always seem to have a few prospects, and he's definitely in that group for sure.
So when I heard you guys have seen similar players that drop a lot of balls, all I could think of was just Kermit jumping off the top of the building, falling to his death.
Yeah, the good old BCS Kermit gif that we fire anytime something. Yeah, anytime something remotely bad happens to anybody, it's not even. It's typically very over dramatic, and we'll just fire the Kermit jumping off the side of the building gif.
It has to be the most used gif for sure, without a doubt.
It's my most used gif. When I go in to send one, it's the first one that pops up every time.
I'm pretty sure that everyone now has a photo album in their Photos app of Kermit memes, just hundreds of them, just loaded in there. I'm like, man, I don't have that much, honestly. I've been able to save what I've been able to see in the group chat.
If you scroll through my camera roll right now, it is literally just pictures of Kermit the Frog and clips of all 22. That's it. There are no pictures of me, no pictures of my friends or family. It's pictures of Kermit the Frog and football. That is it. There's nothing else in there.
We stand Kermit. If there's another Muppets movie, we are standing Kermit, and we are watching that movie just to get.
Oh man.
Oh boy. Anyway, getting back to scouting at the very least. Dante, we've talked about how many, reports that you've done. Is there a player that you've done a report on that disappointed you, that may have had hype or may have you thought was better than what they showed on film?
Yeah, I think a couple of them stick out to me in the Big Ten. A couple of guys left me wanting a lot more. I think the most prominent one is probably Sevyn Banks out of Ohio State. I think, there's a lot of complexities with corner play. And I think what's something that gets lost in the shuffle is at the end of the day, your job is to prevent the receiver from catching the football. Sevyn Banks, just simply put, just gets beat too much. It's for a variety of reasons. Sometimes he's just a little bit tardy. And in his defense, Ohio State runs a lot of cover 3, so he's kind of conceding a lot of underneath stuff. So I'm not necessarily talking about his overall completion allowed percentage, but he just gets beat down the field way too much. I feel like guys separated from him way too easily. His athletic traits are very impressive. This is a size, length, speed, change of direction ability. It's all there. He's just not sticky. He's just not. And guys are consistently beating him. He just has so many lapses in coverage. So If he has a good year this year, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he's a back end of the first round guy just because he's got that Ohio State corner pedigree. I mean, hell, the Raiders took freaking Damon Arnett in the first round. So I think Seven Banks is a comparable athlete to him, at least, probably a little bit better. But his film is not better than Arnett's right now, at least in my opinion. His 2020 film is incredibly up and down, inconsistent. Even his CFP film is a little bit lackluster. So he disappointed me a lot. Really, the whole Ohio State secondary did. I have watched 3 guys from the Ohio State secondary right now, and I think they all have day 3 grades for me. So I thought that whole group was really underperforming a lot last year. And Banks is a guy who's getting first round hype. And I mean, I don't think you can draft him in the first round off of 2020 film, man. He's just getting beat way, way too often.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of Ohio State's defense was getting beat consistently last year. I mean, it was bad.
I think
over 3, man. Like, and in the national championship, I'm like, I do not ever want to see anyone against an offense like Alabama, any sort of offense like Alabama with any sort of good weapons. I don't want you to run cover 3 with your linebackers against freaking Devontae Smith. You know, like, could it be that Banks struggled in cover 3 and he's more of a man or just maybe a cover 2 corner?
I mean, I think Banks has enough traits that he's a scheme descendant, like transcendent player. I don't think, maybe he's better in man, but I don't know. He just had like too many lapses in coverage where he just didn't seem engaged. And I had a similar complaint with Shaun Wade last year, where you just watch Shaun Wade's film and you kind of like, where's this guy's head at? Banks was not as bad as Shaun Wade. I want to make that very clear. Banks did not have as bad of a year last year as Shaun Wade did. Shaun Wade's film was like UDFA worthy last year. Seven Banks is still a very much a draftable player and has a ton of really appealing flashes, but there's just so many laps in coverage, man, where he's just like, he's T-stepping late and like he's not reading the eyes of the quarterback and he's getting out of breaks weird and he's just like route anticipation, it's just like lackluster and like I don't know, man. His film was weird, but I think I thought Ohio State's front 7 was fine personally, and I just think that secondary just had a tough time last year. They just never really looked like they had their heads on straight. Guys were blowing coverages. Safeties had trouble communicating all year. Corners weren't engaged. Guys weren't in phase very often. It's just very, very weird stuff going on in the secondary. So I don't know. Hopefully they get it cleaned up this year. We'll see.
A lot of that could have been from COVID, like not from them just getting COVID. I mean, they had some situations where they had plenty of COVID positive tests and there were like chemistry was out of whack, all that, and secondary and second, third level or first, second, third levels were really inconsistent at times. That could have been from the pandemic. Who knows? But I'm really interested to see how Ohio State's defense rebounds this year, especially with a new look linebacker core. They have some talented players there. I'm really interested to see how they look. I know Zach Harrison is hyped. I wouldn't say hyped up, but that's one of the more well-known names I know from the pass rush group that I have yet to watch. Have you watched Harrison? What do you think of him?
I like Harrison a lot. He's got a first-round grade on my board. I think he's a top 10 BCS guy for us. Let's see. Nah, he's close. He's got a first-round grade, so I like him a lot. Very traitsy, long, explosive, powerful. I think edge is a position where you can get away more with guys who rely on traits who aren't refined as much in technique, and I think that's what you get with Zach Harrison. He's a player who still needs to develop a pass rush counter of any kind would be appreciated. A pass rush plan would be cool. And I think, something that gets lost on some people sometimes is like, look, man, Zach Harrison's plan is I'm just going to go in there and out-athlete everybody. And you know what? It works for him. It really does, But that's obviously not going to fly in the NFL, and sometimes it can be hard for college players to develop that plan because, like, simply put, they don't need it. And I think Harrison needs to get a lot more hype. I don't think he's the best edge in the Big Ten, but I think he's close. And I think that, again, I'd be shocked if he's not a first-round pick. It's just the traits are there, the size, the athleticism. He has bend, he has power, he has length. There's nothing that you can't teach him that he needs to learn. And I think even if he doesn't develop a great plan or if he doesn't develop a pass rush counter, I think he's going to be a low floor guy where he's just going to go out there and create a lot of pressures with his length and his power and his natural athletic ability. But, if he develops anything close to a consistent pass rush plan this year, I mean, he's going to be maybe a top 10 pick. All the traits are there. And I don't think he's quite, he's not Chase Young. He's not the Bosa brothers, but he's very good. He's very good. He's going to be another talented Ohio State edge rusher.
I'm looking forward to see him this season, how he progresses, especially with there are a lot of players in this class that I think could really, if they improve in just maybe one or two areas, they could really jump up boards. I think that's how much potential this class has to being good, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Let me look at my board real quick. I've only, like I told you beforehand, I have only evaluated 15 total players, so I have a lot of catching up to do. But my first 4 players on my board are all defense. This looks like it's going to be a good year to have defensive players if you're in need of defense, So I'm looking forward to seeing this as a defensive-heavy class. It's not as big of a offensive class as we have seen in years past, but I'm looking forward to a little change of direction here with the defense kind of taking over the draft class as the main highlight of this group. So I'm looking forward to that. There's one guy that I was talking to you about before the show or before the live stream, and that was Brandon Joseph. You were telling me a little bit about him. Tell the audience some of your thoughts real quick before we end up heading out of here. What you think of Brandon Joseph, because I'll be watching him right as soon as this live stream ends, because I am very, very looking forward to watching Brandon Joseph's tape.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph is fantastic. I haven't watched Notre Dame's Kyle Hamilton yet, and so I want to preface that before I say this. I think Brandon Joseph is the best safety in this class. I have not watched Kyle Hamilton. I've been told that Kyle Hamilton's like a top 3 player in this class. So for me right now, Brandon Joseph is safety 1. I haven't watched Kyle Hamilton, but Joseph is just incredibly, incredibly impressive in everything that he does. I don't think there's a weak point in his game. I think that you can pick out any particular trait in his game, and he's going to grade out incredibly strong in that area, whether that's man coverage, zone coverage, physicality, tackling. 6'1", 192. He's a third-year sophomore for Northwestern. Had 5 interceptions last season. He's tied for college football's lead in returning interceptions for players. He had the big one in the Big Ten championship game where he had the one-hander against Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields in the end zone. Kid has tremendous ball skills, tremendous athleticism, really, really good size. You can play him at strong safety. You can play him at free safety. I think he can play single high for you. I think you can play him in 2 deep. He can take a third of the field if you want to run a cover 3 defense. He's just incredibly versatile. Keys on the run game really well, runs the alley, pretty good tackler. I don't really think there's a weak point to his game. And, I think, we're a little bit limited in the film that we can acquire. I gave him a high 2nd round grade. I think if I had a little bit more tape, I might have bumped him to a 1. I just think that he's so incredibly talented. I don't really hand out a lot of 1s to safeties. So the fact that he's close, I think it says a lot about how I feel about him. Again, I've not watched Kyle Hamilton, but of the guys that I've seen right now, Brandon Joseph is incredibly, incredibly impressive. I think that he's going to be a hot commodity at the back end of the 1st round. And, I really hope he comes out this year. Northwestern kind of has this ability to get guys to stay a little bit longer than a lot of other schools. But if Joseph repeats what he did last year, man, he's really good. I think he could be he's got to go. He could end up being like a top 15 guy for me just overall. So
if he displays anything close to what he did last year in the small amount of games that Northwestern played, he puts up that same type of production on a 13-game schedule, 14 games, depending on how many games Northwestern ends up playing this year. You have to leave. You have to leave for the NFL. I don't see any other way you don't go back.
Like, well, yeah, I mean, you think about Greg Newsome. I mean, he was a junior and he decided to go to the NFL, and he didn't have near the production that Brandon Joseph had last year. And it's just insane to me because, like, I love Greg Newsome. Like, that's like number one for my guy last year.
He was incredible.
But he was awesome. But like you look at Brandon Joseph now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And like, I wish the Browns could have taken a receiver, you know. I think add a little bit more explosiveness to that receiver core. But you just look at that roster and then you add Greg Newsome, who's good, and you add him to that cornerback room that needs help in the secondary. I will say that it wouldn't surprise me if Greg Newsome is Defensive Rookie of the Year. I mean,
that is a bold claim.
Bold take, I know.
Bold. I know, it's as bold as your Browns Super Bowl take last year. I didn't forget about it.
Wait, I predict. Wait a minute.
What is this take? What is this take? Whoa! I am not privy to.
He predicted that the Browns would go to the Super Bowl last year.
When
you weren't too far off.
At what point, though? What point?
When we did the preseason predictions.
Oh shit!
Yep.
Wow.
Love that.
Yeah,
they were close, man. If it wasn't for Chad Henne, you might have had it.
Fuck Chad Henne.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't be laughing, but But anyway, back to the point. Brandon Joseph is a really good football player.
Yes.
Simply put. And I'm very excited for, and I was talking to Jared about this at the end of the show yesterday. I'm excited for those cross checks so I can watch some of these top guys, hopefully.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Well, we still have to figure that out. We'll do it too. We will. We're very much in a figure it out as we go process. Yeah, we've had a bit of a staff turnover session here the past couple of weeks, so we're working through some kinks. But we'll do cross checks eventually. It should be fun, man. Those meetings are going to be. We should stream those. Those are going to be fun. That's just going to be us yelling at each other for an hour.
I want to be in those meetings, even though I'm a floater, for different reasons. Like, I want to be in those meetings just to see the chaos ensue.
I want to see a fourth round guy get a first or second round grade.
See, that's going to be the crazy part, man, because we have some interesting grades on this board. I don't think I'm going to release the BCS consensus board to the public, man.
Don't until we do cross checks.
You need to do it, bro. You need to do it. Just to
we can't. Jared, you haven't seen this board, my dude. Can
you please send me the board, or
it's in the drive? Folder? Yeah, I don't know if you can edit it, but you can look at it. It's something else. We're gonna do cross checks soon. I don't know. I'm gonna have to try and implement a rule that because I all right. We'll have this conversation over the weekend, but Brandon Joseph's really good. And I think that him and Greg Newsome last year, man, I think 2 first-round caliber prospects in that Northwestern secondary. So we'll see what happens this year with Newsome gone, man. But Joseph is
looking forward to Joseph tonight. And also, I don't know if I want to predict Cleveland Browns to win the Super Bowl after what happened last year, Devin.
See, I've been waiting for the perfect time to drop that because I never forgot. And that was the perfect time.
I've had so much going on. I have so much going on in my life that I just completely forget about stuff that happened yesterday. I wouldn't have never thought of that until you brought it up. Man. Yeah,
it was funny because you said they would beat the Chiefs, and they were literally they were a couple plays away. But we did not expect Patrick Mahomes to get hurt, though. So
yeah, they were one Chad Henne away,
one bad Chad Henne moment away.
Yeah, just like the 2006 Dolphins, baby. You love to see it.
Jesus, I was like, are we going to go far enough where we're not talking about the Dolphins at some point.
I had to sneak it in at the end. You know,
you had to. At least we didn't have a Tua discourse in here. That would have been very.
I refuse to have Tua discourse. I'm out. I'm out. I'm done. I'm not talking about Tua anymore. I refuse.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But no. Final question here from me, Dante. Is there a player you have left in the Big Ten that you're looking forward to watch that you just haven't gotten to yet?
I don't know. I think that I've covered a lot of the guys that I want to cover. I'd like to get more film on some guys that I've filed like preliminary reports on. Like George Karafalatis is a big one from Purdue. I watched his 2019 tape to do his eval. He barely played in 2020, had like COVID and stuff. But I had a list of like 75 draft eligible guys I want to get to, and I've done 63 reports. So I feel pretty good where I'm at. I think there's some like day 3 guys that I want to get to. Logan Bruss, the left tackle from Wisconsin. He might be a Senior Bowl guy. Jim Nagy was tweeting about him today. I haven't watched him yet. He's on my list. So I guess that would be the one that I'm excited about. Wisconsin offensive linemen are always fun, man. They're maulers. So, you love to see that. Yeah, that happened like 25 minutes ago.
I just saw that. Saw that. I'm like,
crazy, man. Dodgers got Scherzer and Trey Turner. So
crazy day in sports, man. NBA, MLB, NFL has been surprisingly quiet.
They're letting everybody have their one day,
Yeah. So no Tua discourse to end the live stream, which is nice. That I'm glad we didn't get to that point. It would have been very interesting, especially if we had more people on watching. But I guess I'll end the podcast. Dante, thank you so much for coming on, bro. We'll talk soon. Probably this weekend, hopefully. So that'll end the live stream for us today, guys. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure you follow Blue Chip Scouting. Make sure you follow me at JRod NFL Draft. Make sure you follow Devin at real Jackson, and then Dante at Dante Colinelli at Dante Colinelli, right?
Yep. Real easy, baby.
Yeah. Simple. I would if I was able to change my name to Jared Feinberg, if I was able to fit my full name plus NFL, like it would work. But I hate that my last name is so fucking long. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts, man.
It's a bold word to say there. You don't want somebody popping in when you're saying some swear words, sir.
My parents, you mean?
Kiss your mother with that mouth, Jared.
Listen, I wasn't gonna say any names. That's why I said someone might pop in. I didn't want to do that, but hey,
they went to bed already. They went to bed. They don't even watch this. So
you know what?
We're done. All right, guys. See ya. Goodbye.